Hi, everyone. I'm Rick Braswalis with Greg Kellogg, and at some point tonight, hopefully Tip Major, we host the Sports Affiliation Thursday Checkdown. Our focus is on helping you be more successful in your fantasy football leagues and have fun because, as Greg always says, if it's not fun, why do it?
Why do it? And we do have it here.
And give me the right link next time.
Well,
I went to the link and I was like, it's ended. I was like, what's going on?
I thought I'd found a way to get you and Rick off the show, and Rick figured it out. And
you diabolical
he shared it with you.
You diabolical super genius, you.
Yeah, all the looks and the smarts would be leaving the show then, huh, Greg?
All the something,
wow.
That's for sure.
Wow.
Anyway, Greg, what is going on tonight?
Well, tonight, we've got a very special guest, but before we get into that, tell people where they can find your work.
At Football Guys, Rotoballer, and the Sports Affiliation. You can find
and that is why I sent you the wrong link. You've got to learn that the Sports Affiliation gets top billing. Once you learn that, you'll get the link on time.
That's why I saved the best for last, Greg.
Oh, okay. Well, that works. Tonight, our guest is Larry Schechter. He's the author of The History of Fantasy Sports. He's done other books too. It's a book that you can get on Amazon, by the way. Yeah. Larry began playing fantasy baseball in 1992. He won the CDM Sports National Salary Cap Challenge. Wow. He beat 7,500 other teams, and then a couple years later, he beat 6,000 teams to be the first two-time champ. This dude's made over $100,000 in winnings in fantasy leagues. Okay, so
wow.
I'm telling you, this guy knows fantasy sports. Let's bring him up, JC, so we can see him. He's a founder and president of a successful financial services company. But when you're making that kind of money playing fantasy sports, I don't know why you got to do anything else. He was also a stand-up comedian for years.
Oh.
So, how you doing, Larry?
I'm good. How are you?
Larry's doing great. Look at the collar. He's got the Saturday Night Fever John Travolta collar thing going on. Larry's doing great.
Well, I love his curtain in the background. It matches my shirt.
Right, I planned it that way.
See,
Larry, see what I have to deal with every week.
Hey, Larry,
my wife asked what you were wearing tonight, and I planned it all out.
I was surprised, Larry, to find that the History of Fantasy Sports was not the only book you've ever written. And by the way, folks, that's the book. You can get it at Amazon. And he does occasionally interview. He does sign the books for people. If you go to the expo and he's there, he will always sign it. He's a great guy. But Larry, are you working on another book now? What are you doing now?
I am still promoting this book. I'll be working on promoting this book indefinitely, because this is something that it's never been done before. No one has ever written the history of fantasy sports. Nobody knows how this all happened. Even people who've been in the industry their whole lives don't know most of what's in the book. So this is kind of it. I think this is my contribution to the fantasy community.
Hey, hi, Larry, and it's a real pleasure meeting you. And I'm an aspiring writer myself, and so I'm just impressed whenever I hear or talk to someone who's actually gotten something published. So I know others are probably curious as well. How much research did you have to do before putting this book together? And then also, how long of it did it take you to do the actual writing?
Well, I thought it was something I could knock out in a few months, and I was crazy wrong. It took 18 months of pretty much full-time work, researching, interviewing dozens and dozens of people, and writing. So it was a lot more work than I ever imagined it would be. and I could have kept going for another 18 months, but I had to keep it practical. The book's like 300 pages plus the bibliography.
Yeah, when I'm doing technology reports, I do a lot of, that's part of my job outside of fantasy football. I often find myself saying, oh, I could just add this one little, and all of a sudden it's just like 400 pages long, and it really needed to be 4. So, keeping it tight, concise, and knowing when to push the publish and send to the publisher button is really important. Yeah.
Hey, thanks, Rick. So, Larry, in your own words, how could you describe fantasy sports to the financial services world and the stand-up comedian world?
I don't think there's really much comparison, although, that's all quite different. Although I would say one thing that I think they have in common, at least for me and what made me successful, is attention to detail.
Nice.
In all three things, there's attention to detail. Like in stand-up comedy, I don't know if anybody would even think what that might mean for stand-up comedy to say attention to detail. I'll give you an example. It's like when you're writing a joke, ideally have your setup be as short as possible. If you can do your setup in 20 words instead of 28 words, it's much better. So I would look at that when I was writing jokes. And also your punchline should be like the last word out of your mouth. You don't say the punchline and then say 3 or 4 more words and cover the punchline. You say the punchline and people laugh. And some people kind of do the opposite on the setup. Some people, what you're trying to do in stand-up comedy, you're trying to get an act that's as long as possible. If you're just hosting a show or doing a guest spot, you might have 5 minutes. Then if you're trying to build up to like a feature act, you got to do 30 minutes. So sometimes you can see people, they don't really have 30 minutes of material. Maybe they have 20 minutes. So they're spending a lot of time saying irrelevant things or having long setups that are not necessary. And, they get their 30 minutes, but the quality is not very good.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Delivery is always important, but to me, I want to know about the process for writing. Now, I know that you were asked about how long it took you to write, but explain the process. How much research do you do before you even put a pen to paper? And are you continually researching while you're writing too? For me, when I wrote articles, now these are a lot smaller than what you wrote. I'm talking 100 words, not 100 pages. And basically, I wanted an outline of what I wanted to hit, the points I wanted to hit in the order I wanted to hit them. So there was some logic to it. When you're writing, how do you process the structure of the book?
Well, for the history of fantasy sports, my original plan was I'm going to write the history of fantasy sports. Who did what when? How did this all happen? How did we go from ideas people had for games years ago to where we are now with this multi-billion-dollar industry with millions and millions of people playing fantasy sports all over the world, everything from fantasy football and fantasy baseball to fantasy wakeboarding, fantasy Iditarod. You've got all these fantasy experts. You got shows like what we're doing right now. You got fantasy everything. It's completely mainstream. So I thought, how did this all happen? How did we go from years ago to where we are now? And no one has ever written a book like this or explained how it happened. So that was my idea. And as I got into it and started researching and talking to people, I started hearing fascinating stories of what people had done. And I realized very early on that I could just write how it all happened and who did what when, and it would get the job done, but it would also come off as a very boring research paper. Or by incorporating the stories of what the people did, it would be interesting and easy to read, which is what happened. The subtitle of the book is The Stories of the People Who Made It Happen. And the reviews are fantastic. People say it's fascinating, it's easy to read. Someone said, most sports history books are boring. This is fun to read. So that's how that happened. And then to kind of go back more to your question, when I started, I really had no idea how I was going to structure it. I didn't know, like, maybe I'll write everything chronologically, starting with, go kind of like, 10 years at a time or something, how it evolved. But then when I got into it, I realized that would be way too confusing. So I ended up structuring it by topics. You got precursors of fantasy sports, the invention and spread of fantasy football, the invention and spread of fantasy baseball, the first publications, the radio and TV shows, everything. There's like about 20 chapters, everything through more modern things like daily fantasy sports and worldwide expansion.
Rick?
And you actually you went through and answered a bunch of the questions I was already going to ask, but actually, you mentioned kind of like some of the things in the book. Is there perhaps like a part of the book or a section of the book that you'd like to share? At least tell us, a funny story or an interesting story from the book for those of us who haven't had a chance to read it yet.
Well,
yeah.
Rick, before Larry answers, he did include something in his book about moi. That's got to be the most interesting thing, right, Larry?
Tell him what page, Greg. Tell him what page.
I don't know what page. I don't remember.
Yes, you do. You know the page because you told me. You bookmarked it.
Besides that,
I know the topic.
Significant bit of
fantasy
football history. Besides that insignificant part of history, perhaps there's something really interesting or funny that you put in the book that we'd all like to hear about.
Oh man!
All right. Well, there's a whole lot of things. It's just like a lot of funny stories, inspirational things. One thing that I like is there in the chapter about stat services. What happened is when computers came out. I mean, prior to computers, the commissioners of the leagues would have to go to the newspapers to get the stats, and it would take them 10 hours a week to get all the stats and put out reports to their league. So when computers came around, that made it easy for people to do stats. And one of the first stat companies was run by a couple named Jim and Gloria Berger from Pennsylvania, and they did baseball and basketball stats in the mid 80s. And what they would do for baseball is the Tuesday USA Today would have the American League stats for the week, and Wednesday would have the National League stats. So they'd get the USA Today on Tuesday, and Wednesday Gloria would read the stats to Jim, and he'd enter it into the computer, and Wednesday afternoon they'd print out the reports and mail them to their customers Wednesday night. But one Wednesday, Gloria went into labor with their first child, and they did not let that stop them from doing their job. So in between contractions, Gloria would read the stats, and then she'd be like, "Wait a minute, hold on, here comes another one." Okay, it passed, and she continued. And their daughter was born that afternoon, and they got the reports in the mail on time Wednesday night. Wow. And now 37 years later, the daughter that was born that day plays in a fantasy league with her dad.
Wow. What a great story.
Well, see, Rick is so in tune with me, and we're always so in tune, because I was going to ask who is the most memorable person, and it seems like that was the most memorable person in your book. But can you talk about?
There are a lot. That's just a story I like, but there's like so many memorable people.
Okay, well, let us know.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to say, well, like the most memorable, if I had to pick just one, I would say Dan Okrent, because Dan Okrent is the guy credited with inventing modern fantasy baseball. And so it was pretty cool to get a hold of him. I spent a couple hours on Zoom with him, and then some follow-up questions by email. And I got the story correct. There's a notion that he magically came up with the idea for fantasy baseball on a plane ride from Connecticut to Texas. That is completely wrong. Even ESPN did a 30 for 30 special that basically tells that story, and it's not at all true. It's like it goes back 20 years before that, and there's a lot more to it.
Oh, wow. So okay.
I was going to ask you about stand-up, but I did that before the show. So since I know you're not doing stand-up, can you recreate the story of Gopfl, GOPFFL, the very first fantasy football league was not done by a bunch of nerds. It was done by a bunch of NFL professionals. Tell us, Larry.
Yeah, so a guy named Bill Winkenbach was a 10% owner of the Oakland Raiders. And in the late 1950s, he had a primitive fantasy game for golf and for baseball. And the Raiders were flying to New York to play, I think it was the New York Titans, now the Jets. And on the flight from Oakland to New York, Winkenbach was talking to a couple of other guys, Scotty Sterling and another guy, which I can't remember off the top of my head. And he told them about his games for baseball and golf. And they're like, geez, we should do that for football. So they went to the hotel after the flight and they stayed up like all night talking about what they were going to do for football. So they created this fantasy football game. But the season was already underway. This was like 62. The season was already underway. So they had to wait till the next fall to actually do the first league. So 63, they started their league. And they made it so you had to have some connection to the Raiders. You had to, or you had to be like a journalist covering the Raiders or selling tickets for the Raiders or something that had to do with the Raiders. So it was just a small group of people who started this league. And when they started doing it, you know, they'd be going to the Raiders games. And this was the first time where you had people in the stands looking at these guys like, why the fuck are you rooting against the Raiders? You're rooting for this running back on the other team. What the hell's that about?
Oh, we lost Larry's mic. He's muted. Larry, can you unmute yourself? Thank you. There you go.
Yeah. That's actually was a perfect segue into why are you not subscribing to the sports affiliation? If you haven't, you need to right now press and smash the like button, subscribe to our show. This is the Thursday Checkdown. We have a plethora of shows on the sports affiliation throughout all of the sports seasons. You got Greg Kellogg, Rick Bruce Willis, and Larry Schechter, who has written the history of fantasy sports.
And we've got a surprise guest who's actually an employee of the Seattle Seahawks coming on.
No.
And everyone on the panel knows this guy. He's a longtime employee of the Seahawks, actually.
No.
Oh, yeah. He's coming on tonight at halftime.
I heard a rumor Beyonce singing tonight on the show.
So it's your turn real quick, Rick. What do you got?
Well, you know, and you mentioned that you aren't doing comedy anymore, but actually, I'm kind of curious if you were to do something like that. As you could tell by the people in this panel, there are a lot of characters that would be kind of funny to either write about or to do a show about or a comedy act about. I'm just kind of curious, you know, if you'd ever given some thought to, you know, including stuff about sports or stuff, especially about fantasy football, in some sort of a comedy routine. Do you think that would make it? I know there's a TV show about fantasy sports.
The League, isn't it? Isn't that
The
what
League? Yeah.
Good show. Very good show.
It was never really part of my comedy. I mean, there might have been some, you know, a couple of things here or there, but I was kind of all over the place with my comedy.
Yep.
So, sorry, here we go. And
how many leagues?
So how many leagues have you? How many leagues have you been? Have you won a championship in the last 3 years?
I want winners.
The last 3 years?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think a few football and a couple of baseball.
Okay.
But actually, I had to take a year off of football. I was so busy finishing the book and then promoting it. I actually didn't play full season fantasy football for the first time in like years and years. So since I had to take a year off, you said the last 3 years. Since I had to take a year off, I'll go back one more year, and I won 2 championships that year.
Okay.
Well, I won my local league this year, and as you can see by the shiny ring, that was what the winner was supposed to get. And I think, Tip, were you in that league with me this year?
What, the Elgin one? Yeah.
Yeah, the Elgin
I
one.
was.
Yeah.
Elgin, yeah.
You didn't win.
No, I didn't win. But
Okay,
but I beat your asses before, so that's okay.
Yeah,
Did
you
the
had.
league, did the league get you that ring, Greg, or did you get yourself?
Pardon me?
Did the league give you
bought
that ring?
No, I bought the ring. I don't charge people to get into my league. So since there's no money involved, I bought a ring for the championship for this one in my Beat a Hall of Famer league. I did not win the one for Beat a Hall of Famer. So I did win the one for Elgin, though.
Those two leagues I just mentioned back in 22, I won a couple of fantasy football leagues. And I thought I'd buy myself a trophy because you don't get trophies or rings. So I thought this time I'd buy myself a trophy. And on Amazon, when I ordered it, it looked really good. And when I got it, it was like 3 inches tall. I thought it was like a big trophy. I thought it was like a big trophy. It's like 3 inches tall.
Yeah, you got to read the fine print, my friend. You got to read the fine print.
Exactly.
So I got to wonder, I love the expo. I met you at the expo. Are you going to be at the expo this year signing books for people?
No, you didn't meet me at the expo. I haven't been to the expo.
Oh, well, are you going this year?
No, Greg, you know, I know what Greg is referencing because he actually was showing everybody your book, Larry, at the expo.
Yeah.
I must have ordered the book from you because I know you autographed it.
Yeah, I mailed it to you, I think, didn't I?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And I took it to the expo with me. You need to go set up a table at the expo and sell your book off the table.
Well, I couldn't wait till the expo. I just ordered it and I've got it on the Kindle version on my phone. So,
I was going to say you could bring it to the expo and I'll autograph it, but not if it's Kindle.
Well,
so you are coming to the expo this year?
I may. What are the dates? You know the dates?
24th and the 26th of July, I believe. But if you go to ffexpo.com, it'll tell you.
There's a good chance I'm going to go this year.
Well, I will introduce you to everybody you want to meet while you're there. And that's kind of what I do is I just introduce people around.
Everybody I want to meet. Ooh.
Well, anybody that's there because I've been doing this.
Anybody that's there. Oh, that's different. I mean, I was thinking, I don't know, some very famous people, but they're probably not going to be there.
Enlighten us. Let us know who are some of those famous people.
The supermodels I was thinking of, I don't think they're going to be at this expo.
Well, I don't know. Kelly Singh goes. She's a supermodel. Tootsie Pop goes. She's a supermodel because they play football. That makes them look a lot better to me. Rick, what do you got?
Actually, it's more, he kind of talked a little bit about the process, but what advice would you give to someone who's thinking about or interested in writing a book, on sports or any topic? What advice would you give?
It's got to be something that you really want to do. And it's probably going to be a lot of work. And I don't know. Just you gotta have some writing ability, obviously, and you gotta have a good topic that's going to interest people.
Great.
I mean, my writing ability is good enough to write a book about, the history of fantasy sports. But if I tried to write like a fiction novel or something, my writing ability is not nearly good enough to do something like a fiction novel or something like that.
Okay, Well, I got to ask you because I thought that Rick was going to ask you this question. Do you know what the Scott Fishbowl is? Have you heard of it?
It's in the book. There's in the book. One of the chapters in the book is about experts leagues. So you got the two main baseball experts leagues: USA Today Labor League, you got Cow Wars, and then I got the FanX. I've got the FanX football is in there, and also Scott Fishbowl is in there, and Justin Mason's Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational.
Well, there's a lot more now with the FFPC and all these championships that are big money leagues. But Scott Fishbowl, have you participated in that? Would you like to?
Yeah. Well, no, I have not. I would like to.
I will send a word to Scott for you. And if you do go to the expo, Scott is always there. I will personally introduce you to Scott.
All right. Okay. Yeah. No, I've talked to Scott.
I think you'd rather see a supermodel there, Greg, than Scott. I mean, hey, Scott's cool too.
Scott's okay.
Hey, guys, we do have our special guest here.
Who is this special guest now?
Our special guest is a gentleman that's been with the Seattle Seahawks since 2012. Okay, he's also a first ballot Hall of Fame fantasy guy.
What?
He went into the Fantasy Hall of Fame with me, and I know you know him, Tip. It's Mr. Scott Engel, who is with us right now. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn around.
King, what's up?
It's going to be the interviewee is going to become the interviewer because I'm going to let Larry ask the very first question of Scott. And we didn't provide Scott with a question from you, Larry. So whatever you want to ask him, you can ask him.
Before Larry goes ahead, I just want to thank everybody for having me. It's great to see all of you. Larry's book is fantastic. I am very.
Well, why don't you ask Larry a question, then we'll let him return the favor.
I'm very humbled to be.
He was about to say how it's fantastic. Let me finish his thought.
Go ahead, Scott.
Larry, in your book, you go so much into the origins of fantasy sports, and one which I really enjoyed is, you talking about Stratomatic and board games, and going back even further to the 60s, All-Star Baseball with the Spinners, things like that, forerunners of fantasy sports. I always thought that was great how you covered it.
So what's your question?
Yeah.
I want him to talk about, more about, not really a question, but more of a discussion point.
Well, yeah, I can. Yeah, what I'll say about that is when I first began to research, my thought was some people think, Stratomatic and APA games were a forerunner to fantasy sports. I'm not sure if I necessarily believe that myself. I know some people think that. So I thought I'll probably mention 2 or 3 paragraphs about Stratomatic and APA being forerunners to fantasy sports. When I started researching, though, there's so much interesting information. It's most of the first chapter is about Stratomatic and APA and some of the other things that you mentioned even before them. And there are things like there are people who've been playing Stratomatic or APA leagues for 30, 40, 50 years. They're still going. One of the guys that I interviewed, I guess 3 years ago about his league that had been going for 45 years or whatever, he still texts me once in a blue moon. He's like, "Hey, we just completed our 47th, annual draft or whatever." And it keeps people together. People that were from in high school or college that would have drifted apart over the years, they're still together because they started an APA or Stratomatic league. And then the same things happen with fantasy sports. People start fantasy sports leagues and it keeps them together for years and years when they would have drifted apart. And there's a great story in the book about one of these leagues that was going on for years and years. There's a guy named Randy Walker. And he was in this APA, I think it's APA baseball. It's in the book. And he was in the league for years and years, never won a championship. And after something like 35 years in the league, he developed ALS. And when he got ALS, everybody thought he'd have to quit the league. But his wife told him, if you want to keep playing, I'll do whatever I have to do so you can keep playing APA. So she would go to the games with him. She would roll the dice for him. He'd tell her what moves to make, and did this for a few years. He got to the point where he could only communicate through an eye reader and by his wife reading his lips. Wow. And in that condition, his team came from 2 runs behind in the 7th inning, in the 7th game of the World Series, extra innings, 2 runs behind, and he came from behind, won his first championship after 39 years in the league.
Oh, wow.
I tell you.
Yeah, there are a lot of great stories in that book, just like that. Very, very fascinating. In fact, there's this one story I'll share because you talk about these guys in your book, and I should have given you this story for your book. If you're going to make a revised edition, let me know, because Lenny Melnick and Erwin Zwillig were like the first prominent broadcasters to ever be on a major platform with fantasy baseball. They were on the weekly highlight show, This Week in Baseball. And the League of Alternative Baseball Reality, created by John Hunt, was one of the original fantasy baseball leagues. So in 1998, I'm at the labor draft with Erwin Zwillig, who is a wonderful, sweet guy. But Lenny can't be there because his wife is having a baby at the time. So can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
we can hear you. Your video's frozen, but your audio's perfect.
So it's called Labor, the League of Alternative Baseball Reality, and throughout the day, Erwin's on the phone telling Lenny, "Don't go into labor during labor. Don't go into labor during labor."
Scott, you had mentioned, and it's in the book, but I had a copy of the game, one of the games, and I think it was Mel Allen's All-Star Baseball was the version that I got when I was a kid. And remember the discs that you would then put on the spinner and spin away. And depending on the hitter, if it was a home run hitter, the home run part of the disc would be larger.
Like
I remember having Vic Wertz on my team. And Vic Wertz, probably his home run slice was like that thin, but his single slice was just enormous. And so always had him as my leadoff hitter just to get in front of the guys that could bring them in. But that was such a fun game.
Yeah, it was made by Catico.
Right.
When I was a little kid, my dad and I used to play it and spin it. It had a pop-up background of Wrigley Field.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
See, now, when I was a kid, my brother and I played an entire league, an entire season, and kept the stats. Stratomatic football, which had a set of offensive cards, a set of special teams cards, and a set of defensive cards, and you'd pull this little spring-loaded thing that would come down and bounce back and forth, and where it settled, you would read across the side to see what the play did. We were so nerdy that we kept the actual stats. Now, we didn't have players, but we would say, okay, so rushing yards, passing yards, things like that. I tell you what, kids today have no idea how much fun that stuff was. Stratomatic football was amazing.
I started with the basketball. Well, I started with baseball, then I moved into basketball and started a league in my neighborhood in Queens, New York. And then I went to football, and the football taught me a lot about the game because on the Stratomatic board, you could move your defenders around. So if you moved your linebackers in, if the other owner was deft enough, he would throw to a running back or a tight end within that zone. Said that was great.
Did anyone ever get their electric football game ever to work correctly? Though? I mean, I can remember those guys just ziggling around the field in no strategy or no direction, and then the quarterback would fling this little felt football, and usually it would go like 3 tables over. You know,
Hey, Larry, I know
Rod Hoffman was much better.
I know we're going to talk some football.
Larry ask Scott a question.
Yeah, let's let Larry ask a question, and then I do have a question for Larry though.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So, my question for Scott is: so first of all, Greg, Greg said that you worked for the Seahawks for several years, and you're in the.
He's breaking up for me. Anybody else?
FS.
Larry's breaking up.
Writers Association Hall of Fame. But he's not doing your resume justice. So anybody what know about
you're cutting in and out a little bit, Larry.
Yeah, Larry, I can't understand your question. Sorry.
Yeah. Well,
I'm breaking
Larry,
up.
if you want to, if you want to step out,
yes,
if you want to step out and step back in, that sometimes frees it up. So Iggy or JC, I think
Iggy and JC, my brothers.
Yeah, if you can tell Larry what you're doing and bump him, and then let him come back in, we'll get to the question. But in the meantime, Rick, you have a question for. We want to get the inside scoop from Scott. So go ahead.
Well, fortunately, Scott, because as someone who's a big fan on the defensive side, I had been worried that the Seattle Seahawks great safety, rookie safety, but then I heard he was going to be playing, and so I'm a little less worried about that. I'm just kind of curious. What players or what are you looking for in this game? Putting your Seattle Seahawk bias maybe aside a bit, what are the things that you're looking for in the Super Bowl this Sunday?
Well, Tip knows this. I always put my bias aside when I appear as a guest, an analyst, or a host. I mean, I'm dressed in
although he has
here, but what I say is going to be different. It's going to be objective. Now, I've written fantasy football for the Seahawks website since 2012. I'm also involved in the Super Bowl coverage as well. Also, of course, you can also find my work at Rotoball, and I'm doing sports betting articles for the Super Bowl on Oregon Live, Michigan Live, and NewJersey.com. So,
you're a busy man.
What's that?
You're a busy man.
A little bit, yeah. But what I'm looking for here is, look, anything can happen in the Super Bowl. Sure. Patriots fans can tell you that starting in 2007. Jet fans can tell you about their only championship in Super Bowl III, which was a complete upset and a stunner. But this is the most complete team in the NFL, the Seahawks. They're a rung up from anybody that, as a complete team, that the Patriots have faced in the playoffs. And I just believe, the better team is going to win. What I'm looking for is, you got two very good defenses, but Seattle has the best offense that the Patriots have faced other than the Buffalo Bills this year. So that's what I'm looking for. But then, I'd like to help the users with their wagering. So I will tell you, I have 3 more long shot Super Bowl MVPs that are going to be published tomorrow on Oregon Live, and I'm going to give you a preview.
Oh, wow.
DraftKings odds, okay? Plus 370, I think. Super Bowl MVP Rashid Shaheed. Now,
I do.
Rashid Shaheed. Wide receiver and kick returner.
Kick returner, yes.
Return to kickoff return in the divisional round for a touchdown, and against the Rams, big late season punt return for a touchdown. Also can be dangerous for a receiver, and on a jet sweep. That's my favorite. My second, plus 750, middle linebacker Ernest Jones.
Yeah,
Jones is the crux, the
Yeah.
How
unsung
often
crux.
does a defensive player get MVP of the Super Bowl?
Didn't
Malcolm Smith,
Malcolm
Super Bowl
Smith.
48 for the Seahawks.
Yeah.
Okay.
My third, now everybody loves Anamori, but you cannot forget about Devin Witherspoon.
Yeah.
When Anamori's a good hitter, he sets a tone, but if you're gonna look for somebody to pick off a pass and take it to the house, or pick up a fumble return and take it to the house, Devin Witherspoon, Super Bowl 60 MVP odds plus 900 on DraftKings.
Nice.
All right, so that's three people you can put a buck down on and come away with some money then.
Wow.
Larry's back with us.
Yeah, go ahead, Larry.
Larry's back with us. Larry, what was your question for Scott?
Well, now in Florida, you're not allowed to bet on DraftKings, so I might have to travel to another state so I can get that dollar down on Devin Witherspoon. So my question for Scott is, now Greg introduced you as working for the Seahawks for several years, and he also mentioned you're in the Fantasy Sports Writers Association Hall of Fame as a writer, but that doesn't do your resume justice, because anybody who doesn't know you, you go back to the 1990s. You started working for CBS Sportsline, one of the first fantasy, companies, or you're probably one of the first fantasy writers ever. And among other things, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if I remember correctly, you hired Michael Fabiano and Tristan Cockcroft to work for Sportsline back then. And after several years of Sportsline, you went on to ESPN, and then you've been on SiriusXM Radio hosting a show for several years. So my question is, just tell everybody a little bit about your amazing career. And by the way, you are mentioned, as you know, you're mentioned in my book a couple of times.
Thank you, Larry. Thanks for all those kind words. I'll give you the short version. I still live in Queens, New York. I grew up as a big Mets fan, living near Shea Stadium, and it's due to my dad, the late great Bernard Engel, that I became such a big sports fan. How my career started, though, is I became a fanatical Knicks fan when I was in high school in the 1980s. And somebody told me they have free Knicks tickets in the library. And I ran down there. And that, much to my dismay, I found out from the faculty advisor of the school newspaper that you had to write an article in order to get the tickets. It was like media credentials. I said, all right, I'll write it. So I got to go to a Knicks preseason press conference in the game. And then, boom, my first ever article, I won the New York Knicks High School Sports Writers Award. I said, nice. I got something here, because I grew up always reading sports magazines and stuff like that. And then I went to college, LaGuardia Community College, and then Long Island University in Brooklyn. And I got a journalism degree, and was working for like local paper, stuff like that. 1996, I moved to Florida, and I saw an advertisement for Sportsline, and I just sent my resume in cold, and they brought me in first to do what they called Football Live back in the day, where I would have to input every play, kind of like the original Game Center. And then in the beginning of 1997, Rick Wolf pulled me over from the newsroom, and he said, you're going to work half the day in fantasy. You're going to work half the day at Vegas Insider. If you do good after 6 months, you pick. If you don't, we're going to pick you. You're going to be gone. And I became the first ever fantasy writer and editor for Sportsline USA, which later became CBS Sportsline. And when we expanded and they acquired Commissioner.com, we interviewed Tristan Cockcroft and Michael Fabiano, and we couldn't decide between the two of them. So we hired both of them, and also David Ganos, who's a Fantasy Sports Writers Hall of Famer, was on the staff. We had Dan Dobish, who's still writing for like Roto World. We had an all-star team, quite an all-star team of content providers at Sportsline.
Wolf hired a lot of great people. He really did it. I think he's one of the. I think Rick Wolf is somebody that more people need to know who he is.
Yeah.
Rick gave me my start, and then when Roto Experts was founded, which is no longer around, many more careers started from Roto Experts from people that identified. I'm not bragging. I just want to shine the light on them. It was Jake Seeley, Adam Ronis,
Wow.
Mike
Wow.
Florio, Frank Stample.
Yeah, but wait a minute. You got to pause there because Adam Ronis, he's now doing baseball. He's slumming.
Everything.
But he's slumming. He's football should be king. There shouldn't be anything other than football.
Don't say that in front of Larry.
Oh yeah, no, come on, Greg. What are you trying to ruffle
Larry's
feathers?
a big baseball guy. I know.
No, football is king, but there's some other, you got to have some pawns to go along with the king.
Yeah, but see, I gave up on baseball after they canceled the World Series. That's when I gave up on baseball.
Yeah.
Who's winning the game? I want to know who's winning the game, Scott.
Okay, here's my final score prediction shared with Rick, my friend Larry, my good friend Greg, and my favorite person who I've never met in person, Tip Major.
Well, you're going to meet him this year.
First half, and the Seahawks are going to pull away in the second half.
That's inexcusable.
Seahawks 38, Patriots 17.
Yeah, it's yeah.
I got the Seahawks winning big too.
Well, one thing. Here's a question for you, King, because I mean, you've been talking to Seahawks, but who is? Because I know you study both sides. Who is an X factor? Not Drake May, an X factor that's on the Patriots team that could wreak havoc on the Seahawks. Who's that one guy?
Hunter Henry is somebody to watch. I talked about on Mass Live. Yeah. All these are under Advanced Local, and I write for several sites under them, sports betting, which I appreciate. I talked about how the Seahawks during the season were among the worst ranking teams in terms of yardage and receptions allowed to opposing tight ends. So I like Hunter Henry as an anytime touchdown scorer. But if you want to go even deeper than that for a bet, Austin Hooper as an anytime touchdown scorer. So there are two right there. But I think another key for them is Will Campbell, their left tackle. Yeah, he was a turnstile in the AFC Championship, and now he's going to be tasked with defending DeMarcus Lawrence.
Yeah, I see it a little differently. I do see a Seattle's blowout, but I think it starts from start to finish. I think it starts because they come out so fast, and
if it's like Super Bowl 48, I got no problem with it.
I think it's gonna be pretty much bloodshed. That's what I'm looking at right now.
The problem with that, Tip, is I think so too, and I'm always wrong.
Predict the other way, please. Thank you.
Maybe I need to change my opinion then. Hold on.
And if we're all thinking that Seattle wins, and Seattle also is my pick, but what would have to happen for the Patriots to win in the Super Bowl?
Well, look, like I said, we've seen stunners throughout football history. You can't assume anything. For the Patriots to win this game, a lot of people are saying, well, they got to get pressure on Darnold, and then Darnold will throw his interceptions like he usually does. The thing with Darnold, though, is that he stopped doing that the last few weeks. When there was pressure on him, he used to try to force a play and make a turnover. That resulted in 2 of the Seahawks' 3 losses this year. But now he's taking sacks. He's throwing the ball away. But I really feel like New England's defense, like the matchup of Milton Williams against right guard Anthony Bradford, is something they got to take advantage of, because Williams is just such a tremendous defensive lineman. They're so strong in the middle that even if Darnold's not making those mistakes, if they can crush the pocket and limit the run, they'll have a puncher's chance to win the game.
So you say New England's strong in the middle. I was going to ask you about a player or two who are outside the traditional superstars, but you kind of answered that earlier with your 3 players to pick. Instead, tell me, what do you expect from Kenny Walker in this game?
I think what Walker's doing, he's had 100-plus scrimmage yards in 4 of his last 5 games, including the playoffs. I don't expect a ton of rushing production. I wouldn't take over 75 yards on a prop bet. But what's going to happen is the Seahawks, even if they're not running the ball effectively, will continue to hand it off because they want to set up the play action pass for Sam Darnold. But they could get the ball to Walker in space. In 2 of his last 3 games in the regular season, he had receptions of 35-plus yards and longer. And in both playoff games, long receptions of 15 yards. Also, I like Kenneth Walker. Right now, my favorite props for him are posted on Michigan Live because, he was a Spartan. And I like Walker, longest reception at plus 15 or over.
Oh, I like
that.
it.
Is a good bet.
I like
yeah.
it.
And you mentioned that he's a Spartan. I know it's not my turn. I'm going to step out of line here. A lot of people don't realize that. I do know that because I grew up in Michigan and my mom got her master's degree from Michigan State. So I'm very aware of Kenny Walker's. What do you expect from Walker next year?
Oh, that's a good question, Greg.
Well, he's a free agent, so that's kind of uncertain. What the Seahawks did this year was they kept him healthy.
Yes.
Because he's had injuries in the past year, and using him in Charbonnet preserved him. So now he's the feature back. But the way he's playing down the stretch, he might be a highly sought after free agent, and there's really no way to predict how these things are going to go.
Yeah, it could be a bunch of moving pieces. But one piece that we don't know about that could stay, retire, right off to the sunset with the second championship is Cooper Kupp. Can you talk about, King, how important Cooper Kupp has been not only in this playoffs but all season long in that wide receiver room, into JSN's ascension into number 1 wide receiver
as a coach too, because he's been coaching those kids.
It's
yeah,
beautiful.
he's like exactly what Greg just said. He's like a player coach. Like fantasy, you really don't draft Cooper Kupp anymore. But and I'll give you a baseball comparison. Larry can appreciate this. There are guys like Alex Cora. He became a manager because he was the leader in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
Guys you've never suspected. Fans are like, why are they on the team? Like, why is Wes Helms on the Marlins? Or something like that. Or I'm trying to remember the guy's name, the relief pitcher for the Phillies, Tommy something. What is it, Larry? I can't remember his last name. He was like a journeyman relief pitcher for the Phillies.
I don't know.
Okay. I'll think of it. But anyway, these type of guys are clubhouse leaders, even though they're not the top players on the field. But Cooper Kupp is both a former Super Bowl MVP and still a very respected player. Jackson Smith and Jigga has had incredible mentors. First Tyler Lockett, and now Cooper Kupp. But you can still rely on Kupp to catch an important first down, or as we saw against the Rams, maybe an important touchdown, and then all the Seahawk fans go, "Coop."
Hey, Scott, you'd mentioned Hunter Henry as a player to look at on the Patriots side, but I always like to look at tight ends as possible difference makers, and between AJ Barner and
Michigan
Elijah Arroyo, which of those would be more apt, not to place a bet because betting might not be legal in every state, but if you were interested in a difference maker, which of those two would you be looking for?
Yeah, by the way, the relief pitcher I meant was Tommy Hunter.
Okay.
So, yeah. Larry knows who it is.
Leave it to King to find. See, King is just a wealth of knowledge.
So anyway, I like that you mentioned Arroyo because he was drafted as a size speed target, but injuries really kind of ruined his rookie season. I like Elijah Arroyo as an anytime touchdown bet.
Nice.
Also with Barner, there's going to be a lot of attention on JSN. There's going to be a lot of respect for Cooper Kupp. When the Seahawks run 12 and 13 personnel, Barner is very trustworthy. I like Barner. If you're feeling gutsy, and I always am, A.J. Barner, first touchdown scorer.
Nice.
Ooh, first touchdown scorer. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. My Scott Fishbowl playoff league team appreciates that.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we were trying to get Larry to write a screenplay. And I want to know, if Larry were to write a screenplay, do you want a cameo or do you want a starring role? Scott, that's to you.
Oh, to me. Do I want a starring role? I'm very self-centered. I think I would want a starring role. And
yeah, but what he didn't tell you though is it's going to be a porno. It's going to be. He didn't tell you I'm writing a porno.
Not that kind of fantasy. No. But Tip made a Saturday Night Fever reference. You know, maybe I can film me walking down the street.
Larry,
Hey, Tip, can
Larry
you
did
with the red hips.
Larry did say,
Watch the hair. Watch the hair.
Watch the hair. Annette, cigarette.
Who do you want starring as you, Scott?
Who do I want starring as me?
I want winners.
I like DiCaprio a lot, but he doesn't look like me. You know, I guess you've got to pick somebody that looks like me.
Well, that's why I chose Channing Tatum over Tom Cruise. Cruise is 3'4", but Tatum is more my son.
Brad Pitt's a lot better.
Greg looking just like Peter Griffin. He looks just like Peter Griffin.
Peter Griffin.
Hey, Scott,
I'm trying to remember the guy's name. People have told me I look like him, and I just can't remember it right now.
Danny DeVito.
Oh wow!
I'm not short and chubby.
Scott, hey, Larry, do you have another question for Scott?
Yeah, I got a gambling question for Scott. Scott, as a many years Seattle Seahawks expert, what's your recommended bet for the over under on this length of the national anthem?
You know what? I haven't researched that, Larry, but I have wrote about that in the past. I think you could research how long it's been, and it might have never. I think the barrier number is like a minute and a half, whether to go over or under.
I don't know.
Hey, speaking of intermissions, there's going to be 2 halftime shows, one by TPUSA and one by somebody that doesn't care that much for the ICE people. Now, we stay away from politics here, but
and yet you're walking right in.
Oh, no, I'm not going into the political argument. I just want to know if anybody on the panel is going to watch the alternative show. I am, not because of the politics, just because I think they're going to have better artists.
Well, I'll say this. I'll say this. I don't care who plays the halftime suit. I don't care who plays the pregame. The Seahawks are in the Super Bowl. I don't go to Super Bowl parties so people talk during the game and they get quiet during the commercials. I don't care about halftime. Halftime, I'm just, maybe going to get a few wings, eat some pizza, but I'm all tuned into the game. By the way, I found your answer for who should play me in a movie. Stanley Tucci.
Oh. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
Well, who should play Tip?
Play to win the game.
Who should play Tip?
Yeah, and don't say Denzel, because
No. That's lazy. Come on.
Yeah.
Better be
Larry?
nice.
I don't know.
I'm thinking
You
Bill
guys
Cosby.
Thinking about that. I'll have
Bill
an answer in a minute.
Cosby. I don't eat Jello pudding pops.
Cello.
I don't know.
No, we don't
I
want
don't
to. We don't want to go there.
I think on the halftime show, you do have the option of watching one and recording the other and seeing it later.
Well, I'm just watching Bad Bunny, guys, because I like Bad Bunny, so I'm excited about it. So
I'm going to avoid the topic altogether.
I think halftime is going to be better than the game, to be honest with you, because I think the game is going to be really one-sided. So.
Yeah, I actually would prefer to go into a more controversial subject. What food are we going to be eating? So wings on this household.
Pizza.
I'm thinking tacos, man. I'm thinking we're going to do a little taco bar.
I'm going to break my diet and have pizza.
Pizza and wings.
Pizza and wings.
I love it.
King's Pizza and Wings. See?
You said Florida, right?
Yeah.
I'm on my way.
Hey, guys, we got to end. We're over an hour already, but I want to really thank Larry. Thank you for coming on, sharing your knowledge. Please get to the expo. I will introduce you to everybody there. Scott, I think Tip's coming to the expo this year, so I'll be able to introduce you there.
I'm going to try to come, and I think Tip should be played by 50 Cent.
Okay, there you go.
I'll take
How about Mr. T?
I pity the fool. No, King doesn't. King can. Go ahead, King.
You want me to do my Mr. T?
Yeah. Clubber Lane. What is your prediction for the fight?
Prediction? You're supposed to say yes. Prediction.
Yes. Prediction.
Pain. Hey, fool! You ready for another beating? You should have never came back.
When he ultimately got Rocky was when he said, "Hey woman,
Yeah.
whenever you're ready to get rid of real man."
Since your old man ain't got no heart, I bet you like to see a real
JC's
man.
got a question.
Stay up late every night dreaming you had a real
JC's
man.
got a question for you.
I tell you what, bring your pretty little self to my apartment tonight, and I'll show you a real man.
JC's got a question for you, Scott. Thoughts on the Warrior injury?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he said he was going to be playing.
I know you wanted me to shut up.
Cannot play with him. Cannot win with him.
Yeah, Nick Anamori today that Mike McDonald said he expects him to play. Anamori met with the media, said he's good to go. If something were to go awry, though, I think people are overrating this because Devin Witherspoon can step in and play nickel, and he's done it. He's been very effective. Yeah. They have a deep secondary with Ty Okada. They can fit in there. They can play three corners. I think it's less physical against the run, but the Seahawks have the best defensive line in the NFL.
All right. Yeah. Again, thank you, Scott. Thank you, Larry. We really appreciate y'all coming on. Anytime you guys want to come on, you know you're welcome on any show I ever do. Any show I ever do. We'll find a way to get you in, even if I'm booked up. So thank you for coming on. Larry, where can they find your book?
Amazon has it Kindle and paperback. And also, if you want to see details about what's in the book and all the reviews, it's on Amazon. But it's also available most booksellers' websites, paperback and ebook. So it's really available most online, most places.
Can
but
they
Amazon's where you can see the more
directly? Can they contact you directly so that you can do for them what you did for me? Autograph the book and mail it to them.
Yeah, you can get the paperback. You can get the paperback on Amazon for about $23, or for an autographed copy, you can Zelle me $5,000.
There you go. It works. Scott, where can they find your work, buddy?
I'm on Twitter at Scott E. the King. Follow my work on Rotoballer, Seahawks.com. Also Advanced Local, which is syndicated all over the place, my sports betting content. NJ.com, Oregon Live, AL.com, Michigan Live, Penn Live, etc. Also, upcoming this season, I'll get to do more with The Athletic again, and my friend Brandon Funston over there, and also SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio Sundays from 11 to 1, and Wednesday mornings from 6 to 7 a.m. Eastern. And my pick to play Greg Kellogg in a movie, Wayne Knight.
No, I don't even know who that is. I'll have to look him up.
That's
Newman.
Newman from Seinfeld.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He was also
Oh,
Jurassic Park.
Oh, that dude.
Guys, thank you. Iggy, take us home, buddy.
Yeah.
Hey, Larry, Scott, hang out after this real quick.
Iggy.